So hey everyone, we're here on the next phase of the Caddy project that we introduced last video. This is going to be the donor car. We're going to do a complete front end swap, cutting the entire front clip and windshield and rockers off of this car and cutting the Caddy apart and putting this one on that one. Most people, when they do this Caddy swap, they're using a four-door Rabbit, not a convertible or cabriolet. So there are going to be some challenges we're going to face in that respect, but we're going to make it work. That's what fabrication is all about. So today the goal is to try and get the old gas automatic engine out of this car, because eventually the 1.9 liter turbo diesel will go in here for the Caddy when it's getting close to being finished. So we're going to try and get the whole engine pulled out. We got to unbolt the axles and everything. And the next step after this will be to make some templates for the doors and windshield on the Caddy, so that we can mark both vehicles in exactly the same place, cut them in the same place, and then hopefully it will go together relatively easily and we can weld it. So let's get started on this.
So as can be expected, after sitting out through the winter, the engine bay had some good mouse nest insulation and some other debris. We started by removing all of the debris and any loose components that were just sitting there or had been previously removed and then just kind of set back in place. Mitchell started removing the air intake pipe there from the CIS injection system over to the intake butterfly, while I tried to remove some of the other fuel system solenoids and electronics. Working on an old car, a lot of times fasteners won't undo the way you want them to. In this case, it was actually surprisingly easy to remove most fasteners, thinking probably that the car had not been driven in the winter very much. Of course, when the convertibles came out, there were the car was driven as your only car if you bought it. It's not till later on that people started to use them just as summer cars and, Sunday afternoon drive and whatnot. A little bit of a battle with the clamps and trying to get the pipe off. The two convertible cars I had previously that I parted out and then scrapped, somebody bought the whole CIS injection system off of them, so the plan with this system will be to sell it as well as soon as the lockdown is over in Ontario. With a good amount of persuasion, Mitchell and I were able to loosen the fuel line connected to the canister filter on the CIS injection housing. In this case, I think we ended up removing the filter from the housing and then later removed the banjo bolt because it just would not undo with the tools we had available to us. What you can't see right now is Mitchell struggling with a wrench and me trying to hold the filter there to try and get the banjo bolt undone. After that came the joyous fun of trying to remove the injectors. It's not direct injection, so they're just held in by an O-ring seal. But of course, probably having never been out of the engine since it was new, had a good time. That combined with worn out vice grips trying to get the injectors out. The other two cars that I pulled the injectors on and sold the systems, they came out relatively easily using this same method. The difference was those other cars still had the valve covers on, so that may have been a part of the issue in this case. first few attempts on this one, the vice grips kept slipping off of the hex body of the injector. So I decided, I guess, to go on to the other ones and see if they were all going to be the same difficulty or if it was just that one that looks really rusty. If all else fails, apply more force. No, don't do that. Especially not on something like this that we're trying to salvage to be able to sell. If it's something you don't care about, then by all means apply more force. But if it's something you're trying to salvage to use or to sell, then if it won't go, don't apply more force. Figure out another way to solve the issue. In this case, I'm using pliers as a bit of a spacer against the camshaft, which again, the camshaft we don't really care about in this car.
Valve cover for this car. I don't think I kept any covers off of I kept the timing covers, but I didn't keep any valve covers off of the other engines. So we need something in there as a block so that it's prying straight that way instead of this way. You hold this here.
So it's all about technique, as you saw there. Once you get the leverage and the mechanical advantage right, the injectors come out not too badly. The fourth injector there was a lot harder to get to. I had to try and remove some of the other hoses and clamps that were in the way.
Yeah, in this case now pull it back a bit so that it's kind of a little lower. Further in. There. Try that. There it goes. It's covered in oil, you notice. The one at the very left end is super rusty. Let's try this one. Again, like that. See now a little. The firewall a little more. No, come on. Cooperate with me. Just don't bash your knuckles. There. That's what we need. Okay. Oh my goodness! There it is. Holy crap. That's brutal.
Brutal as that stupid one-time. That stupid one-time clip on the Mark IV trunk video.
Oh, the white one.
So once we finally got all four injectors popped out of the head, the next thing was to try and carefully remove the entire injection system in one shot without disconnecting any of the lines to try and keep as much dirt and air out of the system as possible for the next user. After removing better than a dozen different clamps and brackets, we were finally able to get the whole system out of there intact and without damaging any of the lines. It's very hard to come by those parts in good shape, and I don't even know what's available for new aftermarket at this point, but every part has value when it comes to European parts. So at this point we're trying to get the AC condenser out of the way. I forget what the next part is, but we'll see here in a second. I really had wanted to keep the AC system sealed, not that it would necessarily work, but gave us something to work from if we wanted to put air conditioning on the Caddy. But I think we had to disconnect a couple of the lines to be able to get it out of the car. I think this is the point where I made a run for the tool shed to grab a big wrench and a pipe wrench to hold the body of the AC compressor so we could undo the one hose. Yeah. Didn't have a wrench big enough. I think it was probably 24 or 25 millimeter, and the biggest in the set was 22. So never fear. That's what I have the big wrenches for. And that allowed us to get all that out of the way, just the one line left that goes through to the heater core inside. This car had a very interesting throttle mechanism. The throttle cable actually went to a bracket on the transmission first, and then a linkage from there to another cable that actually goes up to the throttle. So that was weird from what I had normally seen.
This is something to do with the AC unit, and it's down between the frame rail and the inner fender, and you cannot get it out of there without hitting the side marker light fixture and the washer fluid bracket, which is permanent. You can't remove it. So I have no idea how you're supposed to get that out of here. Somebody has gear clamped the unit to this clamp, so if we can get that clamp down there undone, it might come apart. The only way we can do that is with a really tiny wrench. I don't have any really tiny wrenches here. Let's try it, I guess. Let's try set. Come on. It is smaller. Ah. Oh. Can't get the box end on it because it's too close to the body. Oh, there we go. There we go, ladies and germs. About 4 hours later, I'll have it loosened enough that we can. doing either, so. I'm just trying to get this clamp loosened enough that hopefully we can separate this AC module from the clamp, or from the bracket. I'm not even sure. I don't have a 6mm ratchet wrench, that's the problem. I have ratchet wrenches, but nothing that small.
When I worked at him, those are all I used, this ratchet wrench.
Okay, well, it's starting to move separately from the. I gotta try and move the clamp down, I think, is the next thing. Ouch. Can't really get my hands in here. Of course, it's in between brackets. Oh my god. Trying not to completely destroy this clearance marker light wire here, which I am doing so far. Come on. Let's go. That should be enough. It's still not gonna fit through there. Like, how stupid can we be? The clamp is through the bracket, so you can't slide the clamp off. There's not enough space to slide the cylinder out of the bracket. Like, holy frick. What idiots. Oh, crap.
Comes.
Oh my god. Like, seriously, guys. Holy. Man, those things come apart. Oh, get off! Man. This has to come apart here. There we go. Okay. Oh, of course it'd be on the wrong side of this. God damn.
So after fighting with that canister for way too long, we were finally able to get it out of the way enough and undo one of the fittings to remove it from the car and get it out of our way. So now to remove some extra brackets that I wanted to keep that will also make it easier to remove the engine a little bit later. As it is, it's a fairly tight fit to get the engine in and out of the car, as on the Mark 1s the rad support does not come out. It's pinch welded to the front of the car, as opposed to the Mark 2s and up. You can take the core support out, which allows you to go up only a little bit and then out forward instead of going straight up and out with the engine. So I wanted to try and keep the wiring harness mostly intact for the car, mainly from a lighting electrical standpoint. Obviously none of the electrical for the gas engine is of any value for the diesel. The diesel only needs one tiny wire to run, nothing else electronics wise, some sensors, but the electrical for the lighting and whatnot we're going to continue to use in this front half of the car for the Caddy. Lots of discussion about the best way to do things and, you know, most efficient use of time, and trying not to destroy any more components than absolutely necessary. Again, the more you can save, the more value. At this point, we're also trying to make sure there are no other electrical connectors connected from the chassis to the engine. The less we have to fight with when actually removing the engine, the better. It's a hard enough job as it is. to remove the coolant pipes that go to the heater core there. Again, leaving those behind to use in the car later. These gas engines, the Mark 1s, they had a valve that opened and closed the coolant flow to the heater core, as opposed to the Mark 2s and up. They have a door that just directs the air either through the heater core or just straight through into the cabin. The problem with these Mark 1s, and I can't remember the name of the valve, it'll come to me after we're done this, of course. The problem with the valve being closed, not only for the entire summer and seizing, is that the heater core, the coolant congeals and gums up the core and plugs it up. So it's better to always have coolant flowing through the heater core and just not direct the air across it, as opposed to shutting off the heater core for the whole summer. And then you have to end up flushing it out and or replacing it when it plugs up. So just trying to remove the rest of that shift and throttle linkage bracket there. It's going to cause major issues when we go to try and remove the engine, so we're trying to get that out of the way ahead of time. Which was a fairly big struggle on its own, again, mainly just trying to access the fasteners with the tools, and the one attachment of the one cable linkage there was fairly neat, but again, like everything with Volkswagen and European cars, it's only neat once you learn how it works. When you're trying to figure out how it works and comes apart, it's rather frustrating and time consuming, but then once you know how it works, it's actually rather ingenious. That long 3/8 drive ratchet was one of the best investments I ever made for tools. A lot of times you need more leverage, but you don't want to have the huge 1/2-inch drive breaker bar, or Johnson bars are sometimes called, so to have something 3/8 drive with a little more leverage is really nice, especially one that ratchets. So that'll about do it for this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one, part 2, where we get a little closer to actually getting this engine out of the car. Thanks for watching.